If you don't like pollution, clap your hands. If you don't like pollution, clap your hands. If you don't like pollution and you want a real solution, if you don't like pollution, clap your hands. How many of you clapped your hands? Hopefully all of you. If you didn't, I don't know. F you. I don't have all the answers to our pollution problems. I guarantee you folks, I got at least one. Stop being lazy sons of bitches and give up your damn car. Okay. Maybe this isn't an option for everyone, or even for those that can. Maybe it's not an option all of the time. But regardless, if you don't like pollution, you can help clean the air up a bit by lessening your car usage. Give up the car and walk a few miles. It may seem uncomfortable at first, but trust me, it really isn't that bad for most people. Especially to my fellow Americans. 40% of us are obese. Fix that shit. I'm gonna try convincing you some other ways other than just yelling at you though. Here's a reason. Not having access to a vehicle, at the very least a personally owned one, can open a whole new world of options to a person. In what other circumstance will you find yourself regularly hiring a donkey for transport or work, being pulled up a mountain in a hand-pulled rickshaw or driven in an e-rickshaw, having to pass over miles of water in a canoe just to access your own property or different parts of town every single day? Us who have grown up with cars have gotten used to them and may find it hard to live without one. But it turns out that the vast majority of the world doesn't actually own any. In fact, most estimates put the number of car owners in the world only between 15 to 17% of the total human population, which is roughly 1.2 billion to 1.4 billion of the 8 billion or so people on Earth. Then you have the more developed countries having a significantly higher rate of ownership. In the United States, 92% of households own a car. In Australia, the number is 91%. The United Kingdom is 78%, and France has 86%. However, what if we just got rid of all these cars? How do we live instead? Well, there are some amazing places in this world where all cars are banned, and they can really give us an insight as to how everyone would survive. These locations aren't limited to only one country or even continent. Rather, they are on every continent, so people from all different cultures, climates, geographies, etc. can prove that cars are unnecessary. Who'd have thought? Our trip around the world begins in Lamu, on Lamu Island, in the Lamu Archipelago in Kenya. Situated 341 kilometers, or 212 miles, northeast of Mombasa, Kenya's largest city, the island is reachable only by boat. Founded in 1370, Lamu Town is the oldest continuously inhabited town in Kenya and one of the first coastal East African settlements by the Swahili people. The town of Lamu was originally named Al-Amu by Arabs and Lamon by Portuguese colonists, who then applied the same name to the entire island. See, the Portuguese weren't so creative, which is also why they, like so many Europeans, decided to steal someone else's land instead of sticking to their own. Okay, skipping over some history, including a 17th through 19th century Golden Age, Omani invasion, as well as German and English colonization. They just got taken by all the Europeans, didn't they? We're moving on into the present day, and the primary purpose of this video: cars are banned. The only automobiles allowed in town, and the entire island for that matter, are emergency vehicles, the mayor's car, and apparently motorbikes. The aforementioned emergency vehicles primarily consist of modified tuk-tuks used as ambulances, as well as, from what I can tell, a single fire engine. But if you're not the mayor or some other civil servant, you don't work for any emergency service, and you don't want to or can't afford a motorbike, that may have also just only been the Google guy, then perhaps you're interested in taking a ride on a donkey? Fortunately, although there may not be any on the island, the Manda Airport sits immediately across an unnamed body of water from Lamu. All it takes to get from one to the other is an assumedly short boat ride. Get to the airport, however, you will need to fly in from Malindi, Mombasa, or Nairobi, and I surely hope you don't mind a 50-50 chance of an extremely bumpy landing. Now that you're actually in town, why don't we show you around the area? Coming into UNESCO World Heritage Site, you can expect there to be quite a bit of history involved with the town. Here in Lamu, you can find plenty of museums, perhaps the most known being the Lamu Museum. Here in the Lamu Museum, they hold the island's ceremonial horn, which is called Siwa. Aside from the Lamu Museum, there's also Lamu Fortress, which was built with the assistance of the previously mentioned Omani people back in the 19th century. Since 1821, it has been used as a defensive fortress by the Omani, a prison by the British and by independent Kenya until 1984, and now a museum by the National Museums of Kenya organization. Apparently, the conversion and restoration process was also aided by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. The first floor of the fort contains an exhibition focused on environmental protection. Courtyard is used for community meetings, weddings, and public performances. Second floor is offices, laboratories, workshops, and a rentable conference room. There's also a library holding an, quote, excellent collection of Swahili poetry and Lamu lore. From the ramparts of the fort, you can get a beautiful panoramic view of Lamu and its surroundings. In Lamu, there are also museums dedicated to Swahili culture and the local postal service. Lamu is home to 23 mosques, including the Riyadh Mosque, which, along with having an interesting history, is home to the Maulidi Festival. This festival is held in the last week of the Islamic month of Rabi al-Awwal. Excuse me for every pronunciation in this video. I sure do hope I'm not offending anyone. And is a time in which praises are sung of the Prophet Muhammad by pilgrims from Sudan, Congo, Uganda, Zanzibar, and Tanzania. During this festival, there are also many activities such as donkey races, which sounds freaking amazing, man, dhow sailing events, and swimming competitions. Also, the Lamu Cultural Festival is held annually in the last week of August. Since 2000, this festival has featured traditional dancing, a variety of crafts, including kofia embroidery, that little hat that some people wear, and once more, dhow races, because this town just loves their dhows. On Harambe or Harambe Avenue, one of the two, you can find famous cuisine, usually involving coconut, mango, and grapefruit, as well as seafood such as crab and lobster. Lamu has several hotels, the oldest of which is Petley's Inn. Probably my favorite part of Lamu is the Donkey Sanctuary. Lamu is home to 3,000 donkeys which are used for heavy labor due to the fact that there are no cars. The Donkey Sanctuary was opened by Englishwoman Dr. Elizabeth Svensson in 1987 because of her concern for the donkeys' conditions. Here, donkeys are able to be medically aided at no cost. I wish we could do similar shit for humans in the United States. Also, in March and April every year, the Donkey Awards are held and given to the finest donkeys. Or, in other words, Lamu likes to annually award the town's finest asses. Wikipedia is also telling me that women's music is an important cultural tradition. Women will perform the chakacha at weddings, and men will perform the hanswa, which is a sort of sword dance, whilst wearing kanzus. So if you ever decide to visit, maybe try getting invited to a wedding. Could be a fun experience. Take that with a grain of salt though, because nearly all of this information is from Wikipedia, and they don't provide any link to information about the hanswa, nor can I find any online. One thing, if you don't like hot temperatures, then don't come here. The average low throughout the entire year is between 73 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and Wikipedia says, to respect the Muslim inhabitants, tourists in town are expected to wear more than shorts or bikinis. Although you may be able to get away with short pants that aren't short enough to be shorts based on these Google Street View pictures. Aside from Lamu, you can find plenty of locations in Africa where cars are banned. In fact, the largest car-free city in the world is in Morocco, and it is Fez El Bali. It's not the whole of massive Fez itself. They've still got a population of 156,000. There are also a few cities in Africa that participate in some car-free days, or just have certain streets, neighborhoods, or zones that are car-free as a sort of experiment. Moving on from Africa and heading into Asia, we take a visit to Matharan, India. Set in the western Ghats mountain range in the Indian state of Maharashtra, 800 meters or 2,625 feet above sea level. This hill station is 90 kilometers or 53 miles from Mumbai, but still part of the Mumbai metropolitan region, and 120 kilometers or 75 miles from Pune. The town can be reached via road or railway from Mumbai or Pune, but most automobiles are banned at the point of Aman Lodge, meaning past that point your main options are walking, horseback riding, hand-pulled rickshaw, or e-rickshaw, which is the only automobile allowed other than municipality-operated ambulances. The nearest airport to Matharan is, excuse my pronunciation, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport in Mumbai. I think I did alright with that one.
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj.
A couple fun facts. Matharan was originally established by the British. Of course it was. Everything was. But it was established by the British as a getaway from seasonal heats. You can still see some of their ruined architecture in the area. Also, Matharan's name literally means forest on the forehead. And if that doesn't attract you, well, I don't know what will. As a tourist, you shouldn't have any trouble finding a place to stay in town. There are plenty of hotels and Parsi bungalows in the area to welcome any visitors who might come by. The roads aren't so welcoming as they are made out of red laterite, but that shouldn't matter so much because there's not going to be any driving anyway. While there is an established town near the railroad station with a population of 5,139 and the basic necessities of a society, I'm not interested in this region so much for the town itself. There are some festivals to be found within it, no doubt, and there are a few man-made locations of interest. The Olympia Racecourse, established in 1892 for horse racing, Pisarnath Temple and Matharan Shiv Mandir, as well as the Matharan Station itself. However, personally, I care much more about the natural landmarks surrounding the area. That being said, the Matharan Station along with the Nero Station does do this pretty cool thing where they have a full-sized 150-year-old train modeled to look like a toy train carry you from the town of Niral up to Matharan Station. The ride takes about 2 hours and 20 minutes, climbs about 2,600 feet and travels across 21 kilometers or 13 miles of land. So if you like trains, there's a good one to put on your bucket list. Back into nature, there are 18 viewpoints around Matharan, Garbet Point being the least visited according to Wikipedia. This is because of its greater distance relative to the town center and other viewpoints. All water of the Matharan is supplied from Lake Charlotte, which becomes an even more popular tourist attraction when it is flooded during monsoon season. For a more established natural experience, there's the Paymaster Park. That's 2 words, Paymaster. And, of course, as there should be everywhere, there are a few hiking trails that one could take. Apparently all needing between 2 to 3 hours in order to complete. The Vigatgad route is considered the hardest, but there are 2, Rambaug Point route and the One Tree Hill route, that don't seem to garner too much attention anymore. In the surrounding mountain peaks, there are located 2 fortresses. One, the Vigatgad Pep Fort, is up 640 meters or 2,100 feet. The second, Prabogad, stands up 700 meters, 2,300 feet. Pictures I've seen of them both, they look absolutely spectacular. Views look like they go on forever, and that geography seems complex and beautiful, not even mentioning the structures themselves. Matharan, like much of India, is home to a large population of monkeys, in particular bonnet macaques and Hanuman langurs. The area also has plenty of domesticated horses for the use of riding. In the wilds, you can find barking deer, Malabar giant squirrels, foxes, wild boars, and mongoose. Oh, and also there have been a few claims of leopard sightings. Don't worry though, because there have been no reported attacks, and also because their population is dwindling and becoming more and more rare to find. So maybe you should worry a bit, not about them, but for them. For any history buffs, emos that hate authority, and or communists, you should know that Matharan also happens to be the birthplace of an Indian revolutionary. Born on the 1st of November 1912 in Matharan, Virbhai Kotwal would go on to take a liking to the communist ideology. When Mohandas Gandhi started talking crap about the British government in 1942, Kotwal, along with many opposers of the British, had an arrest warrant issued against their name. Kotwal is pushed underground, where he formed a mercenary group called Kotwal Dasta. This group is composed of about 50 members who, between September and November of 1942, cut down 11 pylons supplying electricity to Mumbai. It crippled industries and the railway. Kotwal then had a 2,500 rupee bounty placed on his head. On the 2nd of January 1943, after having a message declaring his group's location intercepted, a final stand was made in which he and his fellow freedom fighters were killed. Rest in peace, Virbhai Kotwal. Honestly, I didn't read too much into detail on the guy, but he was a revolutionary, and I hate authority like any good teenage American man, so he's a hero in my books, even if he was a communist. Unfortunately, Matharan has yet to be designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was investigated and considered at some point, but never actually put on. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that it is one of the smallest hill stations in India, because there are plenty of others in the country that are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Forget whatever the hell UNESCO thinks, though. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in the Indian government has Matharan listed as an eco-sensitive region, so I imagine that it is already protected. More highlights from Asia include Gulangyu Island in Xiamen, China, the islands of Lama, Pengchao, and Chongchao, all in Hong Kong, China. Also, Jakarta, Indonesia has a car-free day every Sunday from 6 to 11 a.m., in which major roads are turned into pedestrian-only zones. Car-free cities in Europe are going to be a little more complicated for me to talk about. This isn't because there's not many or there's a lack of information on them, it's just the fact that there is so damn many. There are a ton of car-free cities in Europe, and I absolutely love it. Just in Switzerland alone, I found at least 8 of the things. Of course, there are some that absolutely everybody has heard of, namely Venice, Italy. But did you know about Geertorn in the Netherlands? It is literally called Dutch Venice. It is magnificent. Those absolute chads don't need any cars, because like the Venetians, they get around through waterways in their own little boats. In fact, the town is accessible only by boats. They have their feet and bicycles too, but it's mostly boats, and who could need more in such a small little town of only 2,795 people? It is 38 square kilometers though, 15 square miles. Almost as great simply because of the name, but not reaching the level of Guillaume, is the Île de Porquerolles. We're going to assume I said that right. I like it personally because it looks like it says pork rolls. Pork Rolls is a simple 13 square kilometer or 5 square mile island off the coast of France. As of 2021, Pork Rolls' population is estimated at about 250 people, beating out only Pitcairn Island. The island's geography consists of cliffs on the south coast, with the port and 3 beaches being on the north coast. The 3 beaches are Notre Dame, La Courtade, and Plage d'Argent. Pork Rolls Village was established in 1820. The lighthouse was constructed in 1837, and their church built in 1850. Then, in 1912, some French guy named fucking Francois, full name is Francois Joseph Fournier, bought the whole damn island. Now Francois here didn't just buy the island to plant vineyards and make a whole load of some fancy wine classified as vin de Côte de Provence, although he did plant 500 acres of grapes and do exactly that. No. Francois, being the absolute simp that he was, bought the entire island as a wedding gift for his wife. Mr. Francois Joseph Fournier couldn't just keep his gift simple and modest and in the budget. No, he had to buy an entire dang island for his wife. I get that you love her and all, but holy shit. Thankfully though, in 1971, France purchased 80% of the island and declared it part of a national park and nature conservation area. So, no more can bullshit modern development take place on this haven island, making it infinitely better. Man, this little island is lucky as hell. Not only are they safe from cars, they're actually protected and cared about by the government. They don't got so many people to bother you, and they get to hold a jazz festival every summer. I want that shit, especially the second one. What I wouldn't give for any government on this planet to actually care about their people. The third car-free city I'm going to be talking about in depth for Europe is Civita di Bagnoregio in Italy. This tiniest village of only 11 permanent residents sits 1 kilometer, 0.64 miles east of the municipality of Bagnoregio and 120 kilometers or 75 miles north of Rome. It lies 443 meters or 1,453 feet above sea level and is accessible only by a pedestrian footbridge. Unfortunately, this footbridge also has a toll on it since 2013. Originally, the toll was €1.50, then it was raised to €3 and now €5, which is approximately $5 United States dollars and 20 cents. Although the toll does allow for communal taxes to be completely eliminated among the 11 residents and the 3,678 of nearby Bagnoregio. The village is not a UNESCO World Heritage Site. However, the mayor of Bagnoregio did submit a proposal to the organization in 2021 to make it so. And boy, do I hope that UNESCO works fast, because apparently the city sits upon, quote, an unstable foundation that often erodes. The erosion is so bad that Civita di Bagnoregio is known as the Dying City. Hey, it's been declared as one of the most beautiful villages in Italy by I Borghi più belli d'Italia. Again, we're just going to assume I pronounced that right. Actually, I am rather amazed that this place has yet to be declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Apparently, the place was founded over 2,500 years ago by the Etruscans. Even back those 2,500 years, the Etruscans had to worry about earthquakes and shit. There used to be some burial chambers up there under the city, but it seems they've been knocked out by rock slides by now. Thankfully, though, there's a proposal in 2004 to reinforce the ground below Civita di Bagnoregio with metal rods in order to keep it from collapsing. I don't know if that ever actually happened, but it was a concept of a plan. And clearly that's all it takes to get shit done, isn't it?
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president.
As you might expect, this ancient city is filled with structures from the medieval era. Most notably, we've got the Church of San Donato, where the holy wooden crucifix is kept. Alamani Palace, which now holds a geological and landslides museum. The Bishop's Palace, which is now a simple guest house. The ruins of the house in which Saint Bonaventure was born back in 1221. And the Door of Santa Maria, which features 2 lions holding decapitated human heads in their paws. Quote, in memory of a popular revolt. This place just got a hell of a lot better. You may have noticed that I mentioned a certain holy wooden crucifix when talking about the Church of San Donato. Turns out it has a short but slightly morbid story behind it. You want to know why that particular cross is so venerated? Because as legend has it, in 1449, when a plague was striking the area around Bagnoregio, a pious woman contracted said plague. This woman then spent day after day praying to the same cross that is so holy, asking God for the pain to end. One day, the pious woman hears from God. He tells her that her prayers have been answered and that the plague will end. Sure enough, a few days later, the plague ends. Hip hip hooray! God saved us all! The pious woman's fucking dead. So, yeah, essentially the legend basically is that God toyed with this woman, giving her hope and then destroying it in an instant. Although to be fair, the pain and pestilence did end. Unless that pious woman for some reason went to hell, then I suppose the pain definitely continued. I'm done describing the European cities in depth, but I will give another 3 honorable mentions. Number 1 is Sark in the United Kingdom, specifically in the Channel Islands. Number 2 is Mont-Saint-Michel in France. I don't know why I keep saying it with a shit like that. Number 2 is Mont-Saint-Michel in France. And number 3 is Chamois, Italy. All 3 of them look absolutely stunning, and I want to visit them all. Out on my home continent of North America, I will be going into depth about 2 car-free locations with complete opposite climates. Isla Horribox, Mexico, and Halibut Cove, Alaska. Isla Horribox is found on the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. The region as a whole is just under 56 square kilometers, or 27 square miles, and has a population of about 3,000 people. The island is mostly known for fishing, but tourists are beginning to rise for the opportunity of whale shark viewing. Isla Horribox is accessible only by ferry coming in from the mainland town of Chiquila. This ferry crosses over 10 kilometers or 6 miles of lagoon, inhabited by flamingos and pelicans, among other birdlife. Non-pedestrian transportation on the island consists of golf carts and mopeds. There is also a single dirt strip airport on the island, which allows a few charter airlines to fly on and off Horribox from and to Cancun and Playa del Carmen. Planes that go there aren't the biggest though. While Isla Horribox does have many things to enjoy in nature, the most popular is the aforementioned viewing of whale sharks. It also seems that between June and September, people are allowed to swim with them. However, the swimming period is unfortunately entirely within hurricane season, and the island is oftentimes evacuated in the event that total annihilation is an existing threat. Other than whale sharks and swimming, of course, a fun common water activity on the beaches of Horribox is kiteboarding. In fact, the island is apparently home to one of the safest beaches where you can kiteboard, with shallow waters, no big obstacles, windy days, and a nearby school where you can practice with a professional trainer. At the western tip of Isla Horribox, in a lagoon called Punta Cocos, you're able to witness bioluminescent water during the night. Pretty! That's the warm weather done and out of the way. Roughly 4,035 or 6,494 kilometers northwest of Isla Horribox is Halibut Cove, Alaska. Once more, as you may have expected, this car-free location is an island. Halibut Cove itself is home to only 76 permanent residents as of 2010. Google states the number is 211 during 2022, but that may be a larger region. The only way to reach and travel around the cove, aside from foot, is by boat. One of the most popular attractions in the region is the local floating United States Post Office, one of the very few in existence, and there are several lodges and cabins that one may stay at while visiting. There are not many people on the island, however Wikipedia claims that there are 161 housing units still vacant in the region, so if you ever want to leave society behind and live your days out as a fisherman, postman, or artist in a moderately warm/cold northern isolated village with no cars and where the only interesting thing to a common tourist is a post office, then this might be the place for you. Sounds like somewhere I'd want to be. Of course, I've just written down what I found on the Wikipedia page so far, but there's so much beautiful nature surrounding this place. Towering snow-capped mountains in every direction you turn. That is, unless you're being blocked by the beautiful needle leaf surrounding the area, or one of the local stilt-raised homes that you're bound to be living in if you wish to move here. Just across Kachemak Bay, you're able to find the town of Homer, and roughly 130 miles, or 209 kilometers away, you can be back to the city if you, for some reason, ever want to return. Anchorage isn't too distant, but you know what's closer? The Mount St. Augustine volcano! Only 77 miles, or 124 kilometers away, that one. It may not sound like much, but I think it's pretty damn cool. Standing at 4,134 feet, or 1,260 meters, this volcano is its own little island, which can be reached via boat or float plane. Be careful trying to climb it though, because it erupts on average every 24.6 years or so. However, the shortest period of time between recorded eruptions was only 10 years. Last time it erupted was in 2006. Still, it'd sure be a hell of a good climb. As honorable mentions go, you may consider checking out Mackinac Island in Michigan or Bald Head Island in North Carolina. That concludes our global journey of the magnificent locations that not only don't own or drive many automobiles, but have outright banned the things. These mentioned are only a small fraction of the total regions around the world doing the same. You can find plenty of car-free islands, cities, or at least zones on every continent and in plenty of countries. As well as these permanently car-free locations and the aforementioned car-free days, there's also a World Car-Free Day every year on the 22nd of September. As the name implies, it is meant to encourage people to go throughout their day without their own personal vehicle. Instead, one should use their feet, a bicycle, public transportation, or some other form of more eco-friendly transport. Forget the day though. I more like the idea of simply not having cars anywhere. Ever. However, I understand the importance of being able to get around great distances fast in modern society. Without cars, we wouldn't be able to have these same vast cities that we do now, at least not nearly as easily. Although, to be fair, we'd probably be better off that way. Regardless, I highly encourage you folks to go out in the world and experience these car-free locations for yourself. Or at least just give up your car for a day every year on the 22nd of September. Or one day a month. Or a week. Perhaps altogether. From personal experience, I can say that going by foot or bicycle is going to take much longer. However, it is far more worth it. This way you can notice so much more than you've ever before. You might be able to experience something great that you wouldn't have otherwise. The example that pops immediately into my mind is a simple one, but still not a bad one. One day, walking to work, this old red Volkswagen bus drives by me. I notice it from afar and my mouth goes agape just because of how much I adore that hippie bus. They honk at me as they go by, of course, after seeing me look so happy about it. And that's it. It was a simple V-bus sighting, but one that kept me happy for hours after and still has a place in my mind nearly a year later. That is exactly the point. As Nick Hunt said in his TED Talk, traveling quickly is a waste of time. That statement rings true when you come to realize the wonderful world that you have been missing around you for years and years. For years and years, you could live in one house and yet know nothing about the surrounding area. The only way to discover the secrets that surround your everyday life is by giving up the car every once in a while and taking things slow. Just take things slow.